What's up guys, Jeff Cavalier, ATHLEAN-X.com. So if you can't get your glutes to grow, then this is the video that you've been looking for. You see, even if you're doing all the things right, you're doing pull-throughs because you've watched this channel before, you're doing barbell hip thrusts, you're squatting, you're deadlifting, but nothing is making your glutes grow, well, there's a reason for that. The best thing to do is test yourself right off the bat, and that's what Jesse's down here for, and that's what I'm inviting you to do right now. Put your phone down, step away from your computer, come down to the floor. So we get into an on all fours position here like this, and what we're going to try to do is just straighten one leg. We're going to test both of them, but straighten one leg all the way back as far as you can and then lift it straight up to the ceiling. And what I'm looking here for is an intense contraction in the glute max right here. Do you feel that? It should feel as if you just balled up your bicep and got as intense a contraction as you possibly could. If you don't feel that, you definitely need this video. Now, there's a bunch of people that probably don't feel it because they never put the phone down and stepped away from the computer to actually do this. Promise me you'll do this at least when the video is done. But of the people that do feel the contraction, I caught at least 3/4 of you, because the only way that you actually felt it was by turning the leg a little bit like that to do that. So check back and look around the corner and see, is your toe pointing towards the camera, or was it done properly with the toe pointing straight down to the ground and the heel up? Because all you do is substitute the glute medius into this that causes that lift. I want just glute max. When you don't have good neuromuscular control of the glute max, it takes a lot away from those other exercises you've been doing already, rendering them not as effective. And not only that, it turns you into a back dominant extender rather than a glute dominant extender. As soon as you do that and you perform those bigger lifts, you're asking for low back pain. So how do we fix all that? We can make you a glute dominant extender, and we can get rid of the low back pain at the same time that we grow your glutes. Meet me over there, I'll show you exactly what to do. And so here we are at a pull-up bar with a band attached to it. Now don't worry, if you don't have anything at all, I'll show you something you can do against a wall with just your own body. It will become almost like rocket fuel for those bigger lifts. We're not replacing those lifts with this exercise, we're complementing it. As you'll see here in a second, it's the perfect complement to what's maybe missing in those exercises, which is why you want to focus on it. Even the best athletes in the world perform this exercise because they know how important bigger, stronger glutes are to performance. We all can benefit from doing something for our glute max here. This is how we do it. So we put our foot here into the band that's looped over the pull-up bar, and we let the hip rise up as high as it possibly can, which puts us into a good degree of hip flexion. That's important, as you'll see here in a minute. You push straight down against the band, down into extension. And then when we get to this point here, we're going to push against the band as hard as we possibly can back in that direction, and also, of course, lift the leg up against the downward force of gravity. So you can really feel the glute max working here. None of the rotation going on here like we would not want to do on the floor. We just get good isolated hip extension. Some of the things you'll notice here, which is why it's a good complement, as I said, you have a lot of range of motion of hip extension here. And it's not just this part from here to here. That's the extended hip past neutral, but hip extension is happening all the way from the very beginning of the exercise, meaning you're going through a position where the hip is in about 110 degrees of flexion or 120 degrees of flexion, all the way down through as 110 degrees, back through an additional 20 or so, and you're at about 130 degrees of resisted hip extension. Also, at the peak portion here, the contracted position, the fully extended position, you've got good tension here on the glute max. At the top of a squat, not really. You know, at the top of a squat, when your hip is actually just straight up and down, right through, parallel through the downward force of gravity, you don't necessarily have a lot of activation of the glutes in that position. The last thing we know is that in a typical squat, we get activation of the quads at the bottom of the exercise. Well, what that does is it causes a little bit of a conflict at the joint itself, because we know that we're trying to either flex the joint or extend the joint, so you start to get a little bit of reciprocal inhibition of the glutes because they can't do both at the same time. Anytime we're trying to cure a muscular inefficiency problem, like we are right here with the glute max, you don't want to take anything away from the muscle you're trying to improve. So in this case, we don't have the quad contributing to the exercise as much because we're not in that overloaded position as we are in the downward position of a squat. For all these reasons, guys, make this exercise part of what you do, not a replacement for what you're doing right now, but part of it, and I promise it's going to be rocket fuel for the performance on those bigger lifts. But I mentioned another way we could do this, and that's up against the wall. I'll meet you over there. what we do is we get ourselves up against a wall. All right, with the second leg, the one that you're not going to work, you're going to fold it down and under. And what we do is we fold it as much as we can because we want to get as close as we can to the wall. So once we do, we scoot even closer to the wall. What that does is it gives us more hip flexion. The closer you can get, the more this hip is going to come into flexion to mirror the benefits we get from the banded pull down. So from here now, all we're going to do is focus on how we push through the foot, because it matters. If you were to take the toe off of the wall and push through the heel, or maybe even pull down through the wall, you're going to get far too much hamstring activation here. That's not what we want. We want glute max, driving through hip extension. So we push the foot flat into the wall, and we try to push through every single inch of the sole of our foot. And as we do it, we pull up very slowly and slow and slow, and really try to drive through glute max. We hold for a second or two at the top, we come down, and we repeat. Driving through. Repetition count here, like the other exercise, guys, I don't really care. It's high quality, good contractions. If you're getting them, you keep going. If you're starting to lose it or substitute, you stop. Generally, this takes place in around the 10 to 12 rep range, and treat this like an exercise. It's not simply a warm-up. If your glutes aren't responding right now, it's because you don't have that good control of the glute max and it's not contributing as it should. Make this muscle work. Treat this like an exercise as it should be. Include it into your routine, and I promise you this will start working. Guys, if you're looking for programs where not only the exercises matter, but how we do them always matters, you can find them over at ATHLEAN-X.com. If you found the video helpful, make sure to leave your comments and thumbs up below. And also, if you haven't already done so, make sure you click subscribe and turn your notifications so you never miss a new video. We're pulling out. All right, guys. See you soon. And what I'm looking here for is an intense contraction in the glute max, right here.